Ladies and gentlemen, after that wonderful first session, we now have His Excellency, Mr. Sunjay Sudhir. And let's give him a very, very warm round of applause for him. He's a distinguished diplomat who has actually, along with Dr. Thani, enabled the big CEPA that we talked about, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. He comes with a great deal of expertise. He's been with the WTO, dealing with a lot of issues that's there. And he speaks Arabic fluently. What better qualifications than that, Sanjay, to have improved the kind of relations that we have? But let's begin with a somber note in some senses. And we don't, as newsmen, get away from the reality of the situation that's here. We've just had a ceasefire after a bruising 4-day war between India and Pakistan. Indian armed forces have given its Pakistani counterpart a befitting response to its perfidy in Pahalgam that saw 26 innocent tourists being gunned down. And as a nation, we salute Indian armed forces for their bravery and valor in the battlefield. Sitting here in Dubai, Sanjay, can you tell us what has been UAE's role post the Pahalgam terror attacks?
Well, if you go back a bit, I think UAE was the first country to come out with a categorical statement post-Pahalgam, a statement which was centered around terrorism, calling it an act of terror. Then when the ceasefire was declared, again UAE was the first country to come out with a statement welcoming the ceasefire. And between the two, our leadership has been in touch. Soon after Pahalgam, Prime Minister had a telephonic conversation with President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Our NSAs have been in touch. Our foreign ministers have been in touch. So it has been an ongoing conversation based on the trust which we have built at the leadership level, at the foreign minister level, NSA level, in the last several years.
And what is the big message that UAE sent us? That,
The big message, if today we say that we have zero tolerance on terror, the UAE stands with us on that. If you look at the OIC statement, the country which actually broke silence on the statement and delayed it for several days was the UAE, again because of their strong policy against terrorism.
And how different was the OIC statement because of that? What is it that, what was the reaffirmation for support from India?
Well, the initial OIC statement had no reference whatsoever to Pahalgam. It was a very one-sided statement, as usually OIC statements are. And under the leadership of UAE, that difference was made. That the starting point of all these things was that heinous act of terror, cross-border terror, which took lives of 26 innocent Indian tourists.
And if you take a look at the role of the Gulf countries in the aftermath, how would you describe that and how has it changed? You've been, looking at this region for a while. What is the big change you notice in their approach this time?
See, overall, if you see, among the 6 countries in the GCC, with 5 we have formal agreements on comprehensive strategic partnership. Prime Minister has been actually giving so much focus to this part of the world. Very recently he was in Saudi, before that he was in Qatar, in Kuwait. As far as UAE is concerned, he has made 7 visits to this country. Post-Pahalgam, you would have seen that not only were our leaders, UAE and India, in constant conversation, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the Saudi Arabia visited India. Prime Minister spoke to his counterparts, several counterparts in this part of the world. So I think this is something which perhaps did not happen in the past. It didn't happen when the Bombay attacks happened.
Right.
And it didn't happen in the several other incidents of cross-border terrorism. But this time it happened. And that gives a very clear and categorical signal that the GCC is with us when it comes to countering cross-border terrorism.
Coming to India-UAE relations, we've had the CEPA and you were an integral part of that. If you look at the 3 or 4 good things we've done and the 3 or 4 things that we need to learn from and move ahead, what would that be?
From CEPA, of course, CEPA has opened new doorways. You mentioned about the trade figures. So this was a very historic CEPA. For us, it was the first SEPA ever with any country in this part of the world. For the UAE, it was their first SEPA ever with any country. And it was a milestone which, let's see the results. For the last financial year, 24-25, bilateral trade has already crossed $100 billion.
Which was the original target.
The original target was set for 2027.
And we've already... Right.
Yeah, we've done it well ahead of schedule.
Right.
And the thing is, it has provided... So SEPA goes well beyond trade. In that ecosystem which has now built up over the last several years, investments have also really shot up. Today, UAE is the 7th largest overall investor into India. The figures of direct investment from UAE is about $22 billion. But then UAE investments don't come just directly.
Right.
They come through so many other global funds, whether it's BlackRock or through the US. So those figures are actually much, much larger. At the same time, Dr. Thani was here a short while back, and he's called as Mr. SEPA because starting with the Indian SEPA, he's actually negotiated something like 25 plus SEPAs, of which about 10 SEPAs are already, they have entered into force. For us, that also provides a new opportunity because if Indians were to invest here, if Indians were to do that kind of value addition which is integral to the SEPA rules of origin, I think there's also opening for us huge opportunities for market access. And if you look at their other SEPAs, it was with big economies like Indonesia, Turkey, Israel. And I say that because the other trade routes are also opening. Dr. Thani spoke about the development corridor which connects the UAE, Iraq, and Turkey. So the corridor is there,
right.
The SEPA platform is there. It's a great opportunity for our entrepreneurs to actually shift a part of their manufacturing base or at least do that part of value addition to have a much larger reach. So those things are happening. We also signed a fresh bilateral investment treaty, perhaps the first ever conforming to our new template, to further facilitate trade.
And what, if you can just sum up, what does it do? How does it stimulate it?
It provides more predictability, more certainty, more protection. So, whenever somebody invests in India, one needs some kind of guarantees, some comfort, some greater comfort than there was in the past. So other things have also been happening around the SEPA ecosystem. A lot of things have happened in the Fintech space, for instance.
Right.
And these have been quite revolutionary. For instance, we have, signed this agreement on settling trade in local currencies, the dirham and the rupee. Finance Minister was actually expected to be here last few days, but she couldn't make it because of obvious reasons.
Right.
We were taking stock of the mechanism. Already about 6% of our bilateral trade is transacted by these means, which means that as we go along, when say 15-20% of our trade is according to this mechanism, then actually there'll be a direct quote between the dirham and the rupee, which shows actually the power of our own currencies. Right. So this is something which we tried out with the UAE. Their credit card system, the debit credit card system, the J1 card, is also based entirely on our RuPay card stack. Again, that was another first. At the same time, we are working on UPI. UPI is also, of course, widely accepted here, including the Dubai duty-free shops and Louvre Museum.
Right.
Wherever you go, you can use it. The RuPay card is very much in currency here. We are working on the central bank digital currencies. We are now working on co-badging their J1 card with a RuPay card, so that if anybody with a RuPay card comes here, they can transact anywhere, and vice versa. So a lot of these things are happening around the ecosystem which SEPA has created.
Now, Dubai is described as the best city of India, I think, in some senses, with so many Indians here. I think the last count in UAE was about 4.3 million, and we constitute close to 40% of UAE's population. If you take a look at some of the new opportunities available for Indians to come, why should India come to UAE? What can we, what are the areas that we need to explore? Both business as well as talent.
No, you're right about Dubai. Because this is where the India-UAE relationship historically started. Our first, that was landed at Port Rashid here. And today, if you see our Indian community here, 4.3 million plus, more than half of that is actually in Dubai. If you look at our investments into the UAE, I think vast majority is in Dubai. If you look at our workforce, people who are driving the economy of Dubai and the UAE in general, more than 60% of the CFOs are actually from India. So, I mean, we have had a big contribution. If you look at some of the very thriving sectors like the real estate sectors, the Indians are driving those sectors. So, there's a huge host of opportunities. And one thing which Dr. Thani mentioned, reverse migration. That is a phenomenon which is happening because we see a lot of Indians from all over the world coming closer home.
Right.
Of course, many of them are coming back to India, but many of them are also coming closer home to really reinforce that connect with India. The UAE also provides, as I said, one of the things, of course, is increased market access because of their own web of SEPAs, but also some kind of a predictability, a business predictability, cheap energy, the taxation structure. It really helps us. It really helps us as a country because I feel that if 100 jobs are created in the UAE, 80 jobs will go back to India. It helps us in employment, it helps us in remittances. It's overall, and also, because the UAE is also at the very cutting edge of technology, as Dr. Thani also elaborated. It makes it so much more advantageous for our companies to link up better with global supply chains, not just for containers, but also for technology, for know-how. And we are working on them, with them, a lot of these spaces. So for instance, just 2 weeks back, we had a huge startup delegation in the space sector. And they had some wonderful meetings across in Dubai as well as the UAE.
Now, coming to the India-Middle East corridor, which we talked to with Dr. Thani about, but take a look at the Indian side and what it's what it's done so far. If you review that, and how much have we done? What more do we need to do?
So, as Dr. Thani rightly mentioned, that see, this is a very ambitious project.
Right.
Connecting India right up to the US. Regardless of what's happening in the rest of the world, as far as we are concerned, India, UAE is concerned, we are doing our bit. And considerable progress has been made. In the visit of Sheikh Khalid, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, to India in September, we launched work on the virtual trade corridor. And after that, much work has actually happened. We are trying to connect our systems. For instance, the interface. On our side, things are a bit complicated in the sense, so many ports, complex customs procedures. But we have announced creating a portal called Maitri. This is the master application, right, so that which can bring in all our inputs, whether it's customs, ports, logistics, into one interface, which then plugs into a similar interface on the UAE side. So there is a Makta gateway from the Abu Dhabi side. There is a similar gateway on the Jabal Ali side. So for that, work is already in progress. The proof of concept should probably be ready in another month's time. So the point is that regardless of when the rest of IMEC takes shape, at least as far as our two countries are concerned, and we are transacting more than $100 billion of trade, our trade gets facilitated as a first step. And then if we have a successful POC, then it is much easier for us to replicate it in the next legs. As far as UAE is concerned, the Ittihad rail network is all working. Is all working. And on our part, we have already connected our ports, Nhava Sheva with Jabal Ali, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya port with Jabal Ali, also with Fujairah and with Abu Dhabi. So those trials are happening.
Wonderful. And if you take a look at, finally coming to, I know we are running out of time, but we've got 4 minutes, but we've done SEPA 1.0. What should SEPA 2.0 look like? Which area should it focus on? How can we boost business?
So when we were doing SEPA 1.0, as you say, we had already built in a lot of things into SEPA 1.0, because that was actually based on our learnings from all other SEPAs and seeing the dynamism of our own economy, the dynamism of the UAE. We had done a lot of things on technology there, done a lot of things on pharma sector there, things like the central bank digital currency. A lot of these things are actually provided within the framework of SEPA. So once, now we are convinced that SEPA is up and running, the numbers speak for themselves. Now we start working on the rest of the sector, which are already there. And then, we also have these regular consultations on how to make sure the SEPA runs very smoothly. And I can say, say with authority, and Dr. Thani would have probably endorsed this, that it's a very smooth mechanism. So when we meet, there are very few issues on which we need to work more. So I think the stage is now right, with more experience on the UAE side with SEPAs, with more experience on our side also with our existing SEPAs to move on to something like SEPA 2.
And finally, if you take a look at the success of UAE, or maybe because you've now spent 3.5 years here, what distinguishes UAE in the way it does business from the other countries, you and Maldives? Maldives is no example, but what are the guiding lights from UAE that we can take away from this?
I think I'll take you back to Dr. Thani's speech. So, capital does not wait. And you can see that happening here. If something doesn't happen with a country, they don't miss the opportunity because the capital is getting generated. And Abu Dhabi, for instance, is known as the capital of capital. Last year, what the count was about $1.7 trillion in Abu Dhabi itself. And then, of course, Dubai is there. So capital doesn't wait. So if they find delays in a certain country, it just goes. The other thing which I've learned here is that trade is like water. It finds its way. Right. So if one of the, say, supply lines, or if one channel gets clogged, it will find its way somewhere.
Right.
So we have to see where we fit into all these things. So UAE has been doing that. So while negotiating SEPA with us, they're also working on the development corridor. And they're also working on very similar things through other countries in this part of the world to reach to Russia, to reach to countries of Central Asia. The vision of the leadership here is very, very clear. And I think that's what is guiding them and helping them punch well above their weight. And today, there's no doubt that in this part of the world, it is the best performing economy. It's an economy which countries recognize, and good thing for us is that there's a large deal of convergence between the vision of our leadership and the vision of the leadership here.
Sanjay, you've added to the lexicon of investment. Capital will flow and find its own level if it's blocked elsewhere. And that's, I think, a lesson that we all need to learn. Finally, one or two areas in a minute where you think we should be focusing on in India with UAE. 2 or 3, say, sunrise sectors that you think, wow, this is the next big thing.
So some of the areas which we've already started working on, and areas which are relatively new in our engagement, one is nuclear field. Nuclear energy.
That's interesting.
The second is critical minerals, because we desperately need critical minerals.
When you say nuclear, we'll come and build power plants here? Is that the
building power plants, servicing power plants, because this is the only country in the GCC which has a nuclear energy program.
Right.
And 25% of the nuclear energy, of the energy requirements come from nuclear energy. And they're planning to double it by 2030.
Right.
So there's a lot which we can do to support the nuclear program. There's a lot which we can do with them to support our nuclear program. For instance, railways, which needs energy all across the country to build small modular reactors, for instance.
Which is the new thing,
or the small reactors, we can work with them on those things. Critical minerals, as I said, is another area which is something which we need very desperately. But it's UAE entities in partnership with a few other countries which are going out left, right, and center, acquiring these assets. Obviously, critical minerals are not required in those quantities in this country. But if we, with them, can work out some kind of a good supply line, it helps us. If we can, ride that wagon, it helps us. So we have signed some agreements with them, and we are doing our joint work on that sector. Another would be, I would say, genomics, precision pharmaceuticals,
right,
which is so critical for our 1.4 billion population. We have done so far about 10,000 sampling. UAE has already done about 600,000.
Wow.
So the kind of technologies they already have, but at the same time, the kind of human resources which we have in the field of genomics, there's clear complementarity, and we have started working on that. Space is another sector where we have grown very organically, we have grown very well, but UAE has leapfrogged. So they've already sent a person in space for 6 months. No, so
right.
they're well ahead of the curve. So there again, there are a lot of complementarity. So these are some of the sectors I could think of where we can work together.
Looks very exciting, and we've run out of time, but certainly not opportunities in UAE. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Sunjay Sudhir, our Indian ambassador in UAE. Thank you.